my medium of instruction, what should be my faculty in terms of comprehension? What should be my faculty in terms of reading? What should be my faculty in terms of writing? What should be my faculty? What should be the proficiency in terms of my speaking? These are things that we have actually not even. So when you take a fourth standard English textbook, for example, and if you take a fourth standard science textbook, which textbook has more complex English? You can comment and you can answer this question for me. I will hold on a little bit and see your answers.
So to me, I think science would be more complex because there could be certain jargons which I may not be able to understand. I do not know. I could be wrong.
So the majority is saying science, and you also said science. But I want to correct you on one big misunderstanding.
So
the jargon I will remember because that's a memorization issue.
Mm-hmm.
So when I say least common multiple, every child knows least common multiple. But the question is one of when I have the description of what is least common multiple, unless I can unravel that, knowing the jargon is of no use. So the reason why you find jargon or terminology as difficult is because it is the description of the terminology that you're not able to understand. It is not the question that the moment you understand the description of it, you will find the jargon very easy. So the problem is not with the terminology. The problem is not with the jargon. The problem is that when you articulate the idea of any of these ideas, of any of these concepts, you realize that the comprehension is simply not there. Your ability to comprehend is simply not there. So English, so the science textbook actually requires a comprehension level that is 3 or 4 grades above what the English textbook requires. The English textbook focuses substantially on the tangible. The science textbook has to go into the intangible. So you introduce a value, you talk about irrational fractions. You talk about ideas that are beyond my capacity to imagine. I can't visualize an irrational number. I can't imagine what is 3.141517. I can't imagine the value of pi. So when I cannot imagine it, this is what is called abstract level comprehension. And it is the abstract level from the tangible. So you can't jump into the abstract. So I can't ask you a question, how many mangoes do they have in all? Because in that how many mangoes do they have in all, I'm asking you to abstract something which you still are not prepared to yet. So how do you now segue from the tangible into the intangible or the abstract is really the process that our curriculum does not even define it. Our curriculum does not even recognize it as a big problem. Some of us got lucky because when I went to school, I had a home environment that spoke English. My teachers spoke good English around me. My maths teacher spoke good English. So as a result of that, what you realize is that everything other than the textbook is actually working in my favor. It is, yes, I'm seeing a comment, same is true with social science textbook. Yes, I told you, whether it's geography, whether it is civics, whether it is history. Once again, these are not, if I'm recognizing, if I'm saying that, who introduced currency in India in history? Why did he introduce currency from gold and silver as the common currency? How did we transition to, let us say, any kind of a denominated currency that I said, this is worth 10 rupees. Why do you transition to it? Now, the moment you try to explain it in language, the child can't follow it because this is at an abstract level. So this is something that we need to look at as to how do I segue from the English textbook? Can the English textbook actually take me there? Or is the English textbook or my curriculum inadequate? I am not going to answer that question. You will discover that the answer to the question as we move forward. Yes, all of you are saying, please tell us how. We are going to address the how also. So until and unless you focus on comprehension as the most important language element that needs to be delivered, not reading, not writing, not speaking, but comprehension as the most important element in language learning, you will not be able to move from comprehension to conceptual understanding. And if you don't have conceptual understanding, obviously, creative and critical thinking, you can keep on talking about it, but you will not achieve the kind of goals that we at a minimum need to achieve in those spaces. So I'm going to quickly take you through some exercises in terms of comprehension. And I'm not going to spend too much time because I do want to answer the questions that you have raised out there. So let's look at some quick examples. And because of the number of participants, I'm not able to do this as an interactive exercise, but you'll be able to do it on your own. And maybe therein you can participate in the conversation here a little bit.
Sure, sir. I'll try to, but my intelligence will be exposed today.
Yeah. I'll try not to embarrass you too much.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. So here is a set of words. Do you understand the meaning? Are all these words familiar to you?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes.
So if I give you a sentence made up of these words, logically you should say that I should be able to understand the sentence. Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay.
The known relation between.
Embarrassment number 1.
Okay.
For Dr. Dhirendra Mishra.
If the known relation between the variables consists of a table of corresponding values, the graph consists only of the set of variable points. If the variables are known to vary continuously, one often draws a curve to show the variation. I can comprehend but can't express.
No, but you should be, if you comprehend bits and pieces of it.
Yes. Maybe 60%, sir.
Yeah. So basically you are able to look at the parts, but until you are able to look at the whole, you can't say it is comprehension.
Yes.
Because I am able to, for example, you are able to visualize the fact that this is a set of points. There is an x-axis, y-axis, you will probably plot the points on this. And then you are saying that, okay, I draw a curve to, join them all. But you have lost the critical element here, which is that the variables are varying continuously. If the variables did not vary continuously, you will get a straight line. If the variables vary continuously, you will get a curve. You cannot join them without using a curve. So the fundamental element in this you actually would have.
Yes.
You would have understood lots of parts of this particular sentence, but the most core element that was supposed to be. So this is pretty much the definition of a curve. But what I would do is I would typically memorize the definition, not necessarily understand. Let's move forward.
Last ceremony, I went to the Bufaku, where I met Prina, who took me to the Bantley. There was much rumching and sunching, fright and I stuttered. Now, I do not know a lot of words out of these words.
Let me ask you a few questions and you can answer those questions. Okay. When did this incident happen?
Now, last ceremony, that must be some season or something, or some time.
You can just answer using the same word. So it happened last ceremony.
Last ceremony.
Okay. Yeah. Where did you go?
Bufakun.
Who did you meet there?
Krena.
Where did the Krena take you?
Bantley.
What happened in the Bantley?
Sorry?
What happened in the Bantley?
Some rumching and sunching?
Yeah. Frightened, what did you do to the Bafakun?
I stuttered.
And then what did you do?
And then I yenid.
Yenid home. Yeah?
Yenid home.
Now, you saw one statement full of words that you knew the meaning of, which stumped you. And here you are able to answer questions with a paragraph that is full of words that you don't know the meaning of. Yes or no?
Yes.
So the idea of comprehension is not related to vocabulary specifically. The idea of comprehension is related substantially more to context than to meaning. So when you see last, you immediately know that Sereni is a point in time. When you see went, you immediately know that Bafakun is a place. See how much information you were able to derive without anybody talking to you or without anybody explaining things. When we look at our own language learning process, you will realize that, when teachers talk about teaching vocabulary and word sets, and we talk about the dictionary, you will realize that totally in your entire schooling process, you probably were not taught more than 500 words. But today you probably know the meaning of 8,000 to 10,000 words, which you have all discovered on your own through this process.
Yes.
So the moment you teach meaning, you actually impair comprehension. This is a very important statement that I'm making. That you should never be taught meanings of words. You must derive the meanings of the words from the context. This is how we learn our mother tongue. We don't learn our mother tongue by people teaching you the meanings of words one by one. Maybe in the beginning you said ball, food, spoon, dish. But after that, you just kept on talking to the child, and the child pretty much figured out the meanings on the basis of the fact that, so when, I don't know how many of you are able to see me, or whether the slide is dominating, but if you can see me, let me say, suppose you're feeding a child and you say, look at this tasty food, it is coming like an aeroplane from here, open your mouth, open your mouth, open your mouth, ah. How much language has actually been communicated in that process, you do not understand.
Yes.
You never explained the meaning of the word, but the child has an idea about aeroplane, has an idea about mouth, has an idea about opening, has an idea about the spoon, has an idea about food. So many things the child has actually derived in that process. It is not a complete derivation, but as you keep on doing this, what you realize is that this fantastic achievement of learning a language emerges. It doesn't emerge by teaching ABCD. It doesn't emerge by teaching meanings of words. It doesn't emerge from word lists. It doesn't emerge from what are synonyms, antonyms. It actually emerges simply from very, very robust communication, and communication where the context is very well established. So this is another element that I want you to think about. Moving forward, here is a word.
Cut.
What is the meaning of this, Dhiren?
Cut.
You can't just repeat the word. Or are you showing me something?
Yeah, I was trying to show you that I'm trying to cut something.
Yeah.
That means
now let me tell you something very interesting. Okay. When I ask this question to English teachers, the English teachers will invariably give me separate, break. They will come up with a series of synonyms for cut.
Yes.
Because you're not an English teacher, you took the common sense route. They will take the academic route to it. Actually, the common sense route is the only one that works, because every cut is the simplest word that you can do to describe this. Every other word is more complex than cut. So you cannot explain cut via another set of words. You can only explain cut by demonstration. And so there are these whole set of words that should never be explained. That should only be shown. But then the other thing about any language is the fact that the meaning of a word does not remain static. It's a very, very dynamic idea. And most words, keep changing in terms of meaning. So let's look at a few examples here. Cut the apple is the way that you gave the meaning. The cut is hurting me is related, but is a completely different
It's a wound.
meaning. Go ahead. You wanted to say something?
I said it's a wound. Here the cut is the wound. Yeah.
What is my cut in this deal? Very different.
Yes.
You did not make the cut. Very different. What a fantastic square cut. Completely different. She's a cut about the rest. Very different. I am just not cut out for cricket. He's cut up with me. Cut it out. Just look at, did you imagine that cut had 9 meanings? And this is not all the meanings of cut. There are more meanings to cut that you will discover. And in this way, whether you take a run, whether you take up, or whether you take down, there are so many different meanings to the simplest of words, that if we teach the meaning of the word, I impair the possibility that you will discover the 8 other meanings of cut. But how did you know all these meanings of cut? Because you know the meanings, each of the meanings in these sentences, correct?
Yes.
You discovered it through context, you discovered it through experience. You did not discover it because somebody told and explained each of these sentences to you. You pretty much derived these meanings.
Yes, sir.
So to understand the power of derivative learning is something that I wanted to understand. With language especially, derivative learning is probably 1,000 times more effective than instructed learning.
Yes. And I
The
also
less you instruct, the more effective you'll be. Yeah, go ahead.
and I also read that you're speaking cut to cut.
Yes, yes. So I think you will discover many more meanings. I had only place for so many meanings on my slide.
True.
So, but I hope you get the idea that how meaning actually can impair the process of actually language learning in a very substantial manner, and why focusing on the word is actually counterproductive to language learning. You really need to focus on communication and not on the word or the meaning. You basically have to keep on talking, and the more that you communicate with context, in context, you will find language really flowering. And we will talk about. I will go very quickly now because I want to. Pritika will actually be able to share, how this actually evolves in the classroom, and that will be a little bit more on the Karadi path process itself. So here is an interesting little sentence, once again in the context, is that this sentence has so many meanings, depending on how you say it. So what is the role of the speaking in comprehension? So I can say, I did not say she stole the money. 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 So did you see how many meanings came through that?
Yes, sir.
And each meaning was completely different from the previous meaning, same set of sentences. So there's an understanding of, how language works and how do I prepare my child to be able to figure out all of these complexities. It is not complex, okay? First of all, I want you to stop thinking that this is a very difficult thing just because you had difficulty. You grew into difficulty. As a child, you did it extremely simply. Because when you learned your mother tongue, nobody really focused on teaching you. People simply focused on communicating. I have an idea. I have a 1-year-old in front of me. I want my idea to enter his or her head. That was my only goal. I did not think about, is he going to learn the language? Is he going to do this? Is he going to do that? My goal was, I was very enthusiastic to communicate with the child, and I did it in the best possible way with lots of non-verbal stimuli. I did not communicate without non-verbal stimuli. So my eyes would go, my hands would move, I would use objects, my voice would move up and down. So I used a lot of tools of non-verbal communication while I was communicating. And that is what eventually resulted in this magical phenomenon of a child actually learning what neuroscience considers one of the most complicated learning processes, which is the learning of the mother tongue. Neuroscience any good neuroscientist will say, we do not know how this phenomenon happens. In fact, we haven't even unraveled how 5% of this phenomenon happens. We know where it happens. We have no idea how it happens. So this is something that I want all of us to understand, that this is extraordinarily easy at one level, but extraordinarily complex to break down and say that through the broken down pieces, I'm going to construct this.
Sir, I have an out of context question here.
Yeah.
Now, these days we see that, a lot of marriages are happening between, two individuals from two different states, speaking many languages.
Yeah.
So in the early years, what do you suggest? Should we introduce only one language to the child, 2 languages to the child, or what is your take on it? More than 2-3 languages?
So I have a personal experience. So let me give that to you. 2 personal experiences, okay? And one experience as a child. Mm-hmm. I grew up in Mumbai. Mm-hmm. My mother tongue is Tamil. My native place is Kerala. Mm-hmm. So I learned Hindi, Marathi, Tamil, and Malayalam. Okay. My parents spoke English, so I learned English. By the time that I was 4 or 5, I was proficient in these 5 languages at a functional level. So the question of and let me give you one more quick follow-up to that. I learned French for 5 years in a very good school, very good teachers. I am the Maharashtra state topper for French. I can't speak 5 sentences of French. So one was inside the classroom, the other 5 were outside the classroom. Whatever was inside the classroom with no ecosystem support, my exam scores were 100, 99 on 100 was my exam score, but my knowledge of the language was close to 0. Whereas when I learned it from the environment, I learned all 5 languages without even knowing that I'm learning. So, and a child in Dharavi, which is actually one of the inspirations for the Karadi path model itself, speaks on average 3 languages, a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old, because of the ecosystem that is there. Most Mumbaikars, if there are Mumbaikars in this place, they will attest to the fact that speak a minimum of 3 languages. And none of this was complicated. Only when you kind of try to break it down does it seem complicated. We do a lot of very complex things intuitively. We don't learn it logically. So the moment you start thinking logically, you'll find it complex. But if you just allow it to happen by creating a space and allow the learning to happen the way, the brain is a powerful, powerful instrument. And so it will do what it needs to do. You create just the ecosystem. Do not start teaching the way the syllabus teaches. In fact, in the schools, there are some schools that have been using Karadipat for 4 or 5 years, which have abandoned the process of conventional teaching entirely because they find that this moves so much faster and so much deeper, so to the extent that I can have a 2nd standard child who can read a 5th standard English textbook effortlessly and understand it and talk about it. This is not a phenomenon. This is not a miracle. This is something that every child is capable. It is the pedagogy that is the problem. It is the process of teaching that is the problem, not the capacity of the child. The child is capable of learning 4, 5, 6, 7 languages. There are probably people in this room who may be, let us say, bank officers, wives or armed forces wives, and I've met many of them who would say that I know 6 or 7 or 8 languages simply because they learned it they had the opportunity to move from Assam to Punjab to Karnataka to Orissa, and in each of these places over a period of 2 or 3 years, they picked up a new language. So language learning, simultaneous acquisition of multiple languages, not a problem at all. This confusion or this concern is only in the logical thinking adult. This is not a problem for the child. It is our problem, not the child's problem.
Thank you, sir.
I'm going to skip now pretty much everything. I'm only going to talk about this one little sentence, Newton's first law of motion. An object remains in its state of rest or of uniform motion unless acted upon by an external force. When we studied this definition, we memorized this definition.
Yes.
Nobody taught us to comprehend this line. We knew Newton's first law of motion conceptually, not from this statement, but from demonstration. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So this sentence basically is easily comprehensible also by a 2nd standard child if I take them through a comprehension-driven process of language acquisition. So now in a comprehension-driven process, you are trained to convert words into both tangible forms as well as intangible forms, not as words or letters or any of the components of it. You think about it as a whole. So in a sentence like this, I must be able to read that sentence and I must be able to do what is called nonlinear processing. What is nonlinear processing is that I need to take parts of this and create one picture. So in this statement of Newton's first law, there are 6 pictures that I need to be able to imagine. 1, an object at rest. 2, a force that is being applied to it. 3, the object moving. 4, an object that is moving. 5, somebody stopping it. And 3rd and 6th, the object coming to a state of rest. So this little sentence actually describes 6 different pictures. And unless you are trained to do nonlinear processing, you will only be memorizing the sentence. You will never be understanding the sentence. You can train each and every student. Every child can actually process comprehension of Newton's first law of motion if taken through the right mode. I'm going to do one more slide and I'm going to hand this over to. I'm going to do a little exercise with all of you. I would like all of you to please close your eyes. There is nothing to see on the slide. I am going to read something out to you and I want you to visualize it. I want you to visualize it with as much detail as possible.
Sure, sir.
Can I start?
Yes, sir. My eyes are closed and I'm sure everybody is too.
Close your eyes. Imagine the power goes out. All the lights go out together and the heavy darkness envelops you. There is a sharp quietness in the air and you blink as your eyes adjust to the sudden dark. Your parents call out to you from another room. You get up and begin to walk slowly, taking small, careful steps. Your arms are outstretched and you maneuver your way by feeling the walls. You stumble a little over a small piece of furniture. You are finally in the living room where your family has assembled. You hear a sharp crack and a small glow fills the room. Your mother has lit a candle. You can all open your eyes. So we did a very, very simple exercise, right? You were able to follow the whole visualization process. But as you read this, you will probably see the quality of writing that has to go such that I make your visual super rich. I not only make your visual rich, I also make the vocabulary very rich. And here I'm using so many idiomatic usages of words, phrases, etc., that this is not something that you would expect that, can I do this with the kindergarten class? Of course you can. Is the student in kindergarten going to be able to do this? Yes, the child can. The child may not understand everything that you're saying here, but the child is very excited to go through this experience of imagination and visualization. The child would much later understand the idea of what is heavy darkness, what is a sharp quietness, and then this whole idea of vocabulary like maneuver your way. The children actually figure out what the meaning could be. They guess the meaning. An English teacher would say, how can I use this word with a first standard child or a second standard child? By all means, the richest of language can be used with children, and the richer your language, the idea should be something that the child can visualize. That is important. The language should be as rich as you possibly can make it, and then you will find how quickly the child moves up in terms of all aspects of language proficiency. I'm going to just show you one more slide that I'm just going to read out. We won't do the exercise. Once again, for the descriptive nature of this. Close your eyes. Imagine a glowing candle in front of you. The candle is tall and sits atop an ancient brass candle holder. The wick of the candle is ablaze with a long quivering flame that dances playfully. You peer at the teardrop-shaped flame, enchanted by the shades of color. The tip of the flame is light yellow, shedding a golden glow around it. The middle of the flame is bright orange, the color of the sky lit by a setting sun. The wick is burned black at the bottom, surrounded by a dazzling blue radiance. The heat of the flame melts the candle gradually, causing the molten wax to trickle down the sides. You stare at the soothing flame for a long time and slowly fall asleep. I shall leave you to marvel at how something like a flame can be so expressively expressed. I'm going to hand the screen over to Preetika. Preetika, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
So, once again, for those who joined late, Preetika is our head of product and training, and she will, introduce Karadi Path the way it actually unravels in the classroom, and that will answer the many questions about some of the ideas that we have that I have introduced, and how this can actually become a classroom model, and specifically how in the online model this can actually become a game changer. So over to you, Preetika.
Thank you, Vish. I hope you've made me a co-host so that I can share. Good afternoon to everyone. I think it was quite a delight to.
Good afternoon, ma'am. On behalf of everybody, I welcome you, and it's a privilege for us to have you also in this forum to, enlighten us. Welcome once again.
Thank you so much, sir. And I've heard a lot about you from Vishwanath, sir. So wonderful meeting you, and lovely to have about 500 people who are still with us. I was completely engrossed, and I didn't want to try answering any of the math questions and all the science questions. So I just, had my video switched off for that. So let me, what I will do is I'll take about 10 to 15 minutes and take you through how an online class can be run, how an online English class can be actually implemented. And I'll show you what we know best, which is our Karadi Path online digital interface itself. I'll try and do this in 15 minutes so that you and Vishwanath sir have time to, take on some questions after that. Just give me a minute. I'll be sharing my screen now. So we have this very interesting digital interface in Karadi Path, which is being used by our schools. I hope you can see the Power English page here. I hope this is visible. Oh, I'm sorry. I'll have to just share the sounds, which I hadn't done. Just give me a minute, and I will also add the computer sounds. Yeah. So this is something that, while the digital interface itself has been developed over several years, much of the content here again, dates back to, I would say, 25 years, 10 years, and many, many years. So while this has come in handy during COVID innovation, the way we have designed our audiovisual resources relies a lot on methodical analysis, research, and a lot of time that has been spent with theater actors, voice actors, and so on. I'm going to request you all not to annotate on the screen, and I will also sort of hide the annotations now. I'm just going to clear it. We will keep an open screen at the end, maybe, if there is time for us all to doodle and scribble. This is what we do in class. I do understand when somebody talks, it's nice to keep doodling, but I'm going to ask you to use your notepads for it and not the screen. So for those of you who do not know what we do in Karadi Path, we try and create an English ecosystem for the child. We believe, like sir was mentioning, if a child has to pick up the language, they have to grow up in this very beautiful language ecosystem rather than use textbooks or workbooks, or like sir was mentioning, have PPTs and YouTube videos being played. Towards this, we have 4 distinct modules, which is action, music, reading, and story. I will take you through all these modules and how these modules pan out in an online classroom. So we give each of our teachers a software, a digital interface as we call it, that can be installed in the teacher's in the teacher's computer, in her laptop. We also give the teacher an app, a mobile app. We give the students a mobile app to reinforce listening and reading that they do in the classroom. I'm going to take you through the classroom interface now. Just give me a minute. So the teacher has just about everything here. Just a second. So if I were to, look at the digital interface itself, the teacher does a set of, activities, beautifully curated activities that go into creating a language ecosystem for the child. We typically start our class with what is called as focus. You all experienced the focus that Vishwanath sir just did. So focus is where we ask all our children to turn on their videos but mute their speakers and close their eyes and imagine. So this is a module where we let imagination unfurl for the child. And the digital interface has ready-made focus activities.
Close your eyes. Imagine You are on a deserted island. You are walking along a stretch of beach, strewn with pebbles, shells, seaweed, and driftwood. You can hear the gentle lapping of waves and the distant shrieks of seagulls.
I'm going to just stop it here because you've already experienced a focus. So we start the class with meditation, and our digital interface, the way it is designed, does not allow for screen time for more than 5 minutes. There's a lot that we do. The screen is only for the instructions. It is for the modeling that happens, but there's a lot of action that takes place. So our first module after this 1 minute of meditation on language is called as action module. This module is used to build the syntax of the child, and we know that most children who make errors in English, or even most adults, make these errors in the language structure, in the sentence structure itself, and not really in the vocabulary always. So here we make the children learn the syntax by doing a set of actions. Our digital interface works because the teacher doesn't have to worry about camera distance. She need not have to order an Amazon, stand, the camera stand. And these are things that are not very easily possible for a teacher in an online class, because if I have to move about and do a class, then I need to place the camera at a certain distance, or the angling has to be right, the lighting has to be right. So we have a theater actor, or rather a group of theater actors who performed all the classes for us for the digital interface. So here we go with actions. So what the teacher has to do is tell children to turn on their videos, stand up, look at the video, and perform the actions. So here we go.
Now we are going to do action commands new. Listen to me, look at me, do as I do, but do not say the commands. Put your thumbs up. Put your thumbs down. Walk fast. Walk faster. Stop and punch the air. Walk slow. Walk slower. Stop and kick the air.
So I'm going to, in the interest of time, stop it there. But what we do is we cover everything from sensory expressions to prepositions to adverbs to even, grammatical person and tenses without even naming any of these grammatical terms. It's just language. We use body and space and movement to make the child acquire that very essential part of language, which is syntax. After this, we have the next module called as the music module, where we introduce the children to Karadi rhymes. Now, Karadi rhymes is followers all around the world. So I guess some of you already know about Karadi rhymes. We are actually all set for the release of Karadi rhymes 3 in July. So Karadi rhymes is music that is redefined, music that is meant for Indian children everywhere. It is something that sort of debunks, conventional rhymes that we have, by which all that we mean is it is very contextual. A child here listens to songs not about a bridge having fallen or a little boy having broken his crown, but about mangoes and bel puri and going to the beach. Okay, I'm going to request you all not to be the kid in class and not annotate. I'll have to go and actually disable annotation for you now, I think. But until then, just a second. I'll have to go back and 1 second. Let me clear all and close it. Great. I think this should help. It didn't get cleared, but that's all right. This gives the feel of a real classroom to me. So that's good. If I had a 5-year-old here, they would have done it. Oh God, I have another 6-year-old. And Oh, good.
Teachers, participants, I request everybody, please do not play with your screen. Maybe unknowingly you are doing this, but please do not do that. Just listen to us. Ma'am, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, sir. What we do is we set the songs in context. So we have songs about Bel Puri, we have songs about mangoes, going to the beach, sights and sounds that an Indian child is familiar with. We believe. Before you learn about the daffodils, you need to learn about parijat and jasmine and the flowers, dahlias and the flowers that you see around in India. So these are contextual songs, that are created with fabulous music and with a very scientific and mathematical rationale behind it. They've been set to tune by three brothers and a violin, which is Mr. Vishwanath and his two brothers, all three of them great musicians, like you had introduced at the beginning, and sung by the one and only Usha Uthup. So I'm going to just play this for you now. I'm just going to go to session. Just give me a second. So I'll just show you what we do here in this session. So we would typically ask the children to mute themselves but come onto the video and listen to the rhyme. You have to buy the song and listen to the rest of the song. But I'm doing this just in the interest of time. They get to listen to this beautiful song where instead of do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, you're going to do sa, re, ga, ma. And then what is very interesting, the digital interface, is the teacher has this teaching assistant with her, like they do in the West. You have a theater actor right next to her. All that she needs to tell the child is, let us all watch the demo together and do the actions. She needs to now only watch the demo along with the children.
Sa, sing the sunflowers. Re, ring out the red roses. Ga, giggle the gulmohars. Ma, murmur the marigolds. Pa, pop the pretty poppies. Da, dance the dahlias. Ni, nod the neem flowers. Sa, re, ga, ma, pa, da, ni, sa.
If you actually look at it, the child wasn't glued to the screen at all. The child is doing a lot. In fact, there are actions where the child is asked to stomp out of the room. And we have parents, asking the teachers, what is happening with this class? I don't see my child glued to the screen. The child is walking out in a huff and an anger and all that. And then the school needs to just tell the parent there's a lot of theater happening as part of the online class. I'm just going to, so there's a lot more here. She can do the activities here. I'm not getting into that now. I'll take you to two of our other modules. So our classes are a mix of action, music, reading and story. I'll take you to a reading module and and a story also. So reading module is where the children listen to the words and repeat after words, families and so on, collocation, connotation, all of that is looked into.
Boy.
The child has to repeat. Turn on the
Boy.
Audio now and repeat.
Boy.
So, and then the teacher can also, ask them to check if the child is able to read out the word. Typically, the teacher would know the children in her class, so she can say, "Hey, Zaya, read the first word here. Rohan, read the second word," and then somebody else reads devoured and library and sent. And before they move on to the story, that would, have these words in it. So this is like, giving the child, so there are two things we do with reading. For lower classes, we start with phonetics, but spend a lot of time in reading by sight. And reading is done both to create familiarity with the story, to have pockets of familiarity when you introduce language, or a set of words, and then take a child to a story, then very obviously the story